not a
Yeah, I
huge
know.
fan of it.
Back when I was like a couple years ago, and I used to do like some gaming channel, I also had trouble with streaming.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I used to stream in Japanese games for a while,
yeah.
good while. Like I said, I might do an old gem for that in the future.
Hmm.
Some of it, even though people are gonna be like, "Oh, you're not perfect at Japanese." It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, that's all good. But I'm wary of doing that one. But maybe we'll see. At some
Yeah.
point, I will. At some point, I will, because I don't really care. Um. Okay, I think we're good, and we should be live streaming right now. And I'm going to post this. Okay, publish now. Link it in the thing, and then we're good.
Yep.
Link it. Okay. Number 3. Okay, there we go. Hopefully I didn't mess up the what's it called? The Patreon ranks, but I'm just gonna find out after this. All right, so I think let me double check that we are actually live streaming, and then we will. Yeah, it says live. We should be good. We should be good. All right, fantastic.
Yeah, it looks
So,
live on my screen.
yep, cool. Looks good. All right, so yeah, Fear Me says hi, so I guess we're live. All right, fantastic. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Great. So hello, my name's Sean. Excuse how I look on screen. Just woke up. I'm a computer science major at UC Berkeley. This actually marks 1 year of me studying Japanese. Although I've actually been doing like what you'd consider MA since like about a month ago for a couple of reasons, but I'll get into that later. Talking about like languages, my parents speak Urdu at home, so I'm kind of average at that. I'm fluent in Spanish. Before CS, I had also planned on studying pre-med, and in California, Spanish is pretty good, so I took 4 years of Spanish at school, enjoyed class, got a 5 out of 5 on the AP Spanish exam. But what really got me fluent, and which this aligns with the MI philosophy, is like the immersion and things like that I did outside of school, which helped out a lot.
What are some of the things that you did?
So the typical like watching shows and reading a lot about topics that I'm into just in Spanish. Turned my phone into Spanish, basically completely, well, not completely, but did a lot of things in Spanish. Also have some friends at school that were also learning Spanish as well, so I spoke with them. I was at a stage of outputting, so that was okay. I also did a lot of italki conversations, which is really good
So,
when you're at the MIA stage of outputting. Maybe not in the beginning, but
so I
having a
mean,
conversation.
did you do
I'm sorry?
some kind of like immersion in the actual media like often, or what would you say?
Yeah, yeah. So I did a lot of immersion in Spanish, watching just shows that I'm into. Not too much the news because it
Okay.
helps immersing when you're immersing in things that you're into, and the
Yeah,
news
yeah,
isn't
for sure.
particularly interesting for me.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I didn't really use the news
No,
that
yeah,
much in
whatever
Spanish.
you like. Cool, cool.
Yeah,
What did you watch like the novellas?
a little bit. Although
I'm joking.
I don't like those too much.
Yeah, yeah, of
I've
course
watched
not.
like Yeah, I've watched like the popular like Spanish shows
Cool.
like La Casa de Papel, which is a great show. It's
Yeah,
from Spain.
yeah.
But anyway, this is all
House of
before
Paper.
Japanese. Yes, close.
The
It's
House of Paper.
well,
La
actually, yes,
Casa
that's
de
right. It's
Papel was
called The
like,
House of Paper. Yeah,
yeah.
and the reason why is because it's about like a movie about like money in Spain and like
Oh,
Spain
paper. I
has
see that
exactly.
paper. I got you.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah. So
Yeah,
it's a pretty good show, especially from
fantastic.
Spanish.
I
But
see what you're
yeah,
saying.
this is all before Japanese. Last year, I accidentally stumbled across my brother's profile on italki and discovered that he speaks Spanish and Japanese, which nobody knew in the family at all.
Oh,
But
fun.
I found his profile and was like, "Whoa, that's crazy." So I thought one day it'd be funny to go up to him and be like, "Surprise, Nihongo shabereru," something like that.
Yeah,
So
but he beat you to the punch.
yeah, but I'm pretty sure he actually sucks at Japanese because he learned like in the traditional method, and I've never actually heard him speak Spanish.
Or
So we'll see
Japanese.
what happens
You
when
never
one
heard him
day.
speak Japanese, you mean?
Yeah, I never heard him speak once.
I see.
Also, when I mentioned that I saw his profile on italki about learning Japanese, but the questions that he was asking were really basic, like what's the meaning of like kara in Japanese, and like how can you give me like some example sentences with it? And he was using Genki, and it was all
Yeah.
bad. But
Did you tell him?
whatever. No, I haven't brought it up to him. I don't even think he knows that I'm good at Spanish or Japan or decent at Japanese. I don't
Yeah.
think he knows.
Why don't you tell him that you're gonna? So you see him there struggling with probably ineffective methods, and you're just leaving them be. You're no banashi ni shiteru.
Yeah, but I don't think he's studying Japanese anymore. I think he's actually studying Urdu, but even then, he probably wouldn't listen
Oh,
to me.
now
He's in his own world.
he's doing Spanish now,
And no, he
or
probably
not
finished Spanish,
Spanish,
but
Urdu. I meant to say Urdu now.
yeah,
I see.
he's
Cool.
focusing on that. He's pretty good at that. So
Also, he just
I don't think he'd listen to my advice,
the
but
Japanese was a face. He's an older brother.
yeah, like 4 years
Oh,
older. Yeah,
I see. I see. My brother's also 4 years older than me too. So what a coincidence.
yeah,
Cool.
it's a
Cool.
tough life, but anyway, yeah. So aside from that reason, I had other reasons to study Japanese, but I didn't know
Cool.
about age at the time. So I started with like the basic like Genki. I used Japanese from Zero Book One, which personally was great for me, learning like hiragana and katakana. And if I were to like if somebody asked me like how should I learn Japanese, I would still recommend it to them. But that's just like a personal preference, not like a MIA thing.
It's
Um,
all good. Okay, go on.
well, after like those textbooks, I kind of just intuitively figured that it'd be best to consume a lot of Japanese content. So I did that for a while, although I didn't really consider it like immersion at the time. I was just doing it, just watching what I wanted without Japanese subs, and it all kind of worked out. And I didn't discover AJET or MA until I decided that I wanted to learn kanji. I kind of put kanji on the back burner for the first maybe like 7-8 months because, well, first it was just a daunting task and I didn't want to start it, so I was kind of just procrastinating on it. But also I figured that it would be easier to just start learning kanji after I knew Japanese, because then it would just be associating those characters with actual meaning. So that's what I'm actually in the process of doing right now, and it's working out really well.
Cool.
Um,
What is it that you're doing exactly? So
so
so how long did you study Japanese up till now? Did you say a year or
it's been
so?
exactly a year, like this week,
Okay,
yeah.
so it's been a year, and so now you're doing Anki and everything. Have you been doing that the whole entire time? Pretty much.
No,
No. When did you start that?
I started Anki. I started Anki right when I more or less right when I discovered MAA. Like first I discovered MAA when I was trying to learn kanji, and I found Matt's video on kanji, which I had to watch like 4 or 5 times to finally understand the argument. But once I was convinced, because it's kind of out there, the whole proposal of RTK. But once I got into it, I started doing RTK and lazy kanji, and then Matt made some videos on like Morphman. And when I saw that, I was basically mind blown, because of the whole idea that you could just sort through a whole crap ton of sentences and find the sentences that are best for you. That's when I was hooked. So I started doing Anki then. So the knowledge that I have in Anki isn't really reflective of what I know in Japanese,
Cool.
because I started Anki late, and so very often I'm an I+1 word in Anki. I actually know the word already, but because I started Anki late, it's just a matter of just letting Anki know I already know it. But I
Cool.
think that's actually the more efficient way to do it than starting from
Yeah, you
with like
shouldn't.
kanji. And
Yeah,
yeah,
I
so I've
agree.
actually, so even though it was on accident and I wasn't a part of like the MIA community until very recently, it all kind of worked out to be the more efficient way anyway. So I was pretty lucky in that sense, I guess. But that's what I've been doing right now: sentence mining every single day. RTK and lazy kanji alongside my sentence mining, which is not necessarily recommended. I'm not sure if it's recommended in the MIA community, but I do both at the same time, and it works out for me.
Okay.
Um, and along with that, just immersion on in shows that I like, and that's basically how I've been studying Japanese.
Cool. What would you say? Like how would you measure your progress?
Um, hmm. Yeah, see, I can't. The problem is I can't go off my Anki statistics, because
Yeah, you don't
even
need
if it,
to. Just subjectively, like how do you feel? Like how do you feel now compared to a year ago?
well, compared to a year ago, I feel great. Compared to like
How about like
just like
6 months ago?
I still feel great, because ever since I started sentence mining, it's been going up like crazy, especially with Morphman. And I have I have a bit of a different like approach with sentence mining, or maybe not, but typically what's been recommended in AJAT and MIA for years has been to create your own um, sentence mining cards that you find while you're immersing. And I guess the methodology behind that is because you have like a personal connection to the
Yeah.
sentence. Also, you're making sure it's I+1 because you're the one picking it out. But that kind of breaks down now that Morphman's a really popular add-on, because Morphman finds those I+1 sentences for you. That doesn't mean like doing your own sentence
Yeah.
mining along with having
Yeah.
Morphman sentence or sort through a bunch of sentences isn't like mutually exclusive. It's mutually exclusive, but
Yeah.
and so that's why I do both. I have like a bunch of pre-made like subsets or STECs that Morphman source through alongside some sentences that I mine myself. And because the pre-made decks that I selected to study from are the types of media that I'm into, whether that's anime or other shows, I'm always learning as fast and as most efficiently as possible because Morphman does all that work for me. And so that's why sentence mining has been really helpful for me learning Japanese. Also, I'm working on coding the programming the add-on that Calculus Ace was talking about with you in the last yoga cast, which is the idea that if you
Oh, go
have
on.
if you have a bunch of pre-made decks, which is what I do, and I know pre-made decks have a bad rep in MA, but I think they're really useful with Morphman now. Um, if you have a ton of pre-made decks, you're going to have a lot of cards with the same focus morph, but or Morphman's only going to show you one of those,
Yeah.
which could be bad because one of those sentences that Morphman skips could have been better than the other sentence. And so the idea that Calculus Ace was kind of trying to talk to you about was if you could cycle through all the sentences that have one specific focus morph, that way you could see that focus morph used in a variety of different circumstances, and you'd know that you're seeing that word in a variety of different circumstances if the pre-made deck that you select are from different sources. So that way the word that shows up in different sources, you'll see all those sentences cycled through in Anki. And so I'm working on creating an add-on that lets you cycle that just when you come up to that card with that focus morph, it could cycle through any of the sentences that have that focus morph, and that way you're seeing the sentence in a ton of different contexts, and it's gonna be great, hopefully. So
Cool.
that's the plan.
Actually, since that conversation, Matt and I've talked a bit more about this, and like, I mean, generally, it's probably fine. I mean, it's good for it to exist, but like that kind of plug-in. But we were, and I'm not saying that's not even the better way to do it either. Like not our concern, but it might be like how we were kind of feeling about it might be that it's just hard to tell which route would necessarily be the better route because perhaps it's better to build strong familiarity with one usage case that's correct, or perhaps it's better to
Sure.
see it the other way. So it's, but I could see that it might be better. I mean, I can't really know. I guess we'll have to see, where that goes because I could see that I could see it going either way
No,
with
yeah,
it.
it's a good point. I actually had never thought of that.
Yeah.
I guess if I was to think of like an off the cuff response, it would be that the add-on will also allow you to view all the sentences that have that morph once you
Yeah.
see the back of the card, so you could quickly review
Yeah.
all those other sentences that exist. As for like the scheduling of the cards, that won't be hard to do. So the scheduling will still be the same. Like if you had just one card with that focus morph, you'd see it after certain intervals. It would
Yeah.
just be the same thing, except that sentence would flip to some other sentence. So it would all work in interval wise. And yeah, I
Well, I'm
guess
not worried. I'm
I
not worried about I mean, coding wise, I know we can manipulate the data however we need to. I'm not worried about
yeah.
that. I'm just talking about like the actual um just the actual or just how it's going to affect the rate of progress. Which one is actually better?
Hmm.
I don't know which one would actually be better. But one thing that I was thinking about is, and I could see that maybe for rare vocabulary that you don't really see,
Yeah, yeah, for
it
sure.
could be like better to just get sometimes like see another way. But usually a lot of like really rare vocabulary, I would say only usually has one like common usage too, like a lot of it.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, yeah, just let's
Well,
see where it goes with that. I'm not, I'm just like wait
yeah,
and
we'll see what
see with
happens.
what kind
I
of
think
progress
one of the uses
people
of
make with it.
Anki that's generally accepted is that it's to, I guess, learn the words in context, and then from that knowledge you've learned, acquire that word through immersion. And so, because you're not really learning, or because you're not actually acquiring the language in Anki, I guess the idea could be with that add-on that shuffles the sentences would be that you're learning this word being used in a bunch of different contexts, and then you can acquire it later in immersion. You don't need to get familiarized with one sentence in Anki per se,
Yeah,
because
I mean,
theoretically you
go
should
on.
just be acquiring it in the
Yeah,
immersion
but I'm
according to the
saying
email.
from literally like 7 years of Anki usage experience, I would say that like it builds a like it's not necessarily a bad thing. Is my point to
Yeah,
be
sure.
well,
I see.
really familiar with some words because it gives you like I don't know. It builds like really strong connections when you know like correct usage cases even for like rare vocabulary because you know like you
Yeah, for sure.
after and I've heard like I forget who I talked with about this briefly after it but something that someone mentioned is that they don't really have they haven't found that they have the ability to really recall sentences like that and I don't know um
Hmm.
I'm curious how long they were like using Anki too, because with like long term usage, man, I found that it really did help. But I'm also I of course admit that like I can only reflect on my own experiences. I wouldn't know what it's like to do it the other way. So yeah,
Yeah, and yeah, I guess we'll never know until it's tried out by a fair amount of people. But I definitely have the same experience that you have, where some of my sentences are, for whatever reason, vivid enough to where, when if I were to output, um, I would be able to produce more or less that exact sentence. Um, but aside from that add-on, like one other Anki add-on that I'm working on is the Death Point add-on, which suspends or deletes your cards after like
that's coming out
the
next
passing a
week, by
certain.
the way.
Well,
Sorry
then
to
you can do
drop.
it.
Yeah,
No, no, that's
It's
fine. I
coming
haven't started
out.
it yet.
Sorry
It's
to
planned.
drop it. Yeah.
Well, hey, that's great. I'm
I don't
glad
know
that
if you
you
watched my
mentioned it
last
to save
video.
my
I
time.
mentioned it. I mentioned it at the end. I want yeah. I will let you know that
No,
that's
that works out
coming.
because
Yeah.
I mean the only reason I'm really making these add-ons is just to improve my coding experience because I mean every single day I'm studying coding to get better, so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just figured making
of
the
course.
add-on would
That's the way
help.
to do it, man. I mean, like just like immerse in code. Immerse in
Yeah,
code.
so I
That's the way to do
figured
it.
making MIA add-ons would be the way to immerse. I've been making a bunch of stuff like that. But hey, good thing you told me because I didn't want to waste any time
Yeah,
on
I
it.
don't know if you watched the latest video at the or
I
till
probably
the
missed
end.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
So
probably missed
it
it.
did. Yeah, that's gonna be coming out soon. So
But is there an ability to suspend the cards, not just delete it? Because
there's
I wouldn't want
there's
to delete cards.
there's everything.
Okay, cool.
There's
Yeah, cool.
there's yeah. There's a wide array of choices of what you can do
Great.
based. But we decided to move away. I guess I'm just gonna talk about it, Matt. It's like very soon. We
God,
decided to
let's
move
talk
away
about it.
from the death point, like
It's kind of a scary name.
like name because maybe like so there's something in Anki called the graduating interval,
Yeah.
and then we're thinking okay, so there's a graduating interval, and then there's gonna be an option for death point. It's like you know what I mean. So we went with retiring interval. The card retires.
Yeah, gotta be PC. Gotta be.
No, it's not
Yeah.
PC. It just fits. It fits the. You know what I mean?
No, I
Like
know.
it doesn't fit the feel of Anki. It's like death
Yeah,
point. It's
sure.
like I don't know. Although I don't know, we're still partial to the word death point. But as far as like the official name, we can call it death point in conversation. But as far as the official name, we're gonna go with retiring a card.
Yeah, that's fine too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So there were a few other things that you wanted to touch on as well. What were they? Let me check
Right. So
back on
like
this. Go on.
some other things that. Quick question I wanted to ask is when you're gonna make the MIA Japanese support plugin open source, because I have a bunch of stuff that I'd love to contribute to it. It's just not. You probably just don't have time to make it open source yet. I'm assuming.
I mean, the whole idea is that we're going to take it to a good place, and we're going to give because Matt and I are investing a lot of time planning these add-ons and doing things. So I feel like it's not necessarily a bad thing for us to give people a chance to contribute to and help us with the beta testing at the beginning, and then
Mhm.
as soon as it gets to a place that is pretty good. Oh, sorry, I just got a message. But once we get to a place that's pretty good, we're gonna release them all open source. And then I'm also not only are we gonna release them open source, I'm going to not be like, I mean, I'll have them on my GitHub, but I'm not going to be even like in charge of them from them. I'm gonna pick some people. So maybe even you could like, if you would be interested, you could
I
be in
would definitely
charge
be
of some
interested, for
projects.
sure.
But we're gonna see who. We're gonna just see in the community whoever would be interested in being in charge of some projects, and then we'll just hand them off. Like we're gonna just produce some, then we're gonna hand them off, and then just be completely open source with it.
Yeah,
So
makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah, that's what we'll do. But yeah, soon, soon. I'm not gonna say exact date,
Hmm.
or let me see. Matt, can I say the exact date?
Wait, in the meantime, while we're waiting for his response, one other
I mean,
thing,
it's also
I,
when it's gonna be done too. But yeah, go on.
yeah,
It needs to be done
one other
too.
thing I figured I'd mention or figured I'd want to talk about would be like potential roles of output in the early stage of MIA. So I'll preface this because this is obviously controversial, at least in the sense that in MIA it's very like it's people say you shouldn't output in the early stages.
What?
Um, when I was learning Spanish, I was basically outputting all the time. And I guess you haven't heard my Spanish, so you don't know if I have a bunch of horrible habits, and I probably do. But um,
Go on.
I did a bunch of like italki while studying Spanish, and that is outputting. And I didn't get extremely good at Spanish
Yeah.
until after some time in like Spanish classes at school. I went on italki on my own time, spoke a bunch, and got better. If you analyze my experience through like an MIA lens, you could theoretically the idea would actually be that while I was outputting, the input that I was receiving from the person I was speaking with was I+1 because it has to be I+1 if you're having a conversation. If it's any higher, it's useless, and if it's any lower, it's probably boring. So usually when people say don't output, what they mean is you're not going to get much out of speaking. You're only going to develop bad habits, and the act of you speaking isn't useful. But you speaking with somebody doesn't mean that the input that you're getting back through conversation isn't I+1 and beneficial for your comprehension. And so if you're, for example, using italki, which is what I did in the early stages of Japanese, and which I would argue helped me, which I would argue helped me, then that would actually be a decent source of, I guess, getting better, a decent source of, I guess, improving your Japanese. The only thing you'd have to worry about would be developing those bad habits, which you can monitor if you're always, for example, like right now in the MA community, it's being, I guess, advocated to kind of be aware of pitch accent at the beginning, for example, and that's like one of the bad habits that's warned against when you're outputting early. You should just keep that in mind always when you're outputting. And if you're always keeping in mind of potential bad habits that you could develop, then you probably won't develop those bad habits. And in that sense, output could be beneficial, at
Okay.
least in the way that I did it on italki.
Okay.
So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily disagree that outputting definitely has a place, but like Matt just said, even in the chat now, he said you're going to get good at speaking in like an artificial way. Like, unless you're actually getting tons of input for like you have to get like what I feel as well is like when you're talking with someone, the amount of input you're getting is usually limited, and the amount of topics of conversation is often pretty limited. Like, so if you really legitimately want to learn how to talk about like habahid, a very wide range of like conversation topics, you're going to have to just do that through input, legitimately. And then also, if you want to just learn how to say things in a in the way that natives particularly say it, of course I could see colloquially you're going to pick up like regular like conversation, you're going to like pick up how to say certain things, but I think you would likely just limit your exposure through that overall. And then also I have personal experience having the output in China, like this, when I learned Chinese, and I'll be honest, my result was, well, it's not just because of that, mind you. I wasn't, it was like just getting on an old horse again, like learning a language again. It wasn't as, I wasn't as enthusiastic the second time around. I didn't try quite as hard, let's say. Like I didn't see as much value as in like as I did in the first time. What is he saying? What is the actual benefit or output though? Okay, yeah, well, I'll ask him that in a second.
understand what he's saying, because
No, but
I mean, when I think about me outputting in Spanish.
Hold on, I want to finish that. So,
Sorry.
I want to say that. So, I was forced to output often, and I kind of allowed myself to output often because I wanted to be pretty social, and I figured, man, I'm already in China from the beginning. Last time I learned Japanese, I wasn't in Japan from the beginning, so I did allow myself to output, but I did realize that. I mean, overall, I would say it was a good time. Like I had a good time socializing and doing that, and then you would get decently good at like trying to speak like your friends do, but you can't even really understand anything at the beginning if you're really early outputting in the language like Chinese. Like you're not really understanding what they're saying. There's not really that much of an opportunity to actually have an I+1 situation. I just feel overall it's just way less efficient when you
Yeah.
can instead control your input and try to slowly understand more without having the pressure of also outputting. I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
just
I,
from
no, I think I
experience, I did just way better on the input front in Japanese when I was just focused on input because I had a singular focus, learn to understand. When I'm speaking, there's like social pressures. There's like so much more to the activity that can get in the way of the simple act of trying to understand. Because when they speak to you, oh, not only do you have to understand, you have to reply, and even if you don't understand, you have to reply. You can't just sit there and ponder what they're saying. You can't play it back. You can't try to understand. You can't look up a word. I think it's not the most efficient way to learn to understand. Like absolutely. But I think in your situation, you're talking about when you get to a level quite a bit higher than that. And then yeah, I can see that. Like for Portuguese, for example, I studied for like a month, and then I went to Brazil, and I had to output, and it was super easy to just pick up words and like understand what they're saying very quickly, very quickly. But I think you can't do that in a language like Japanese or Chinese because they're just too different. But in a language like Portuguese, like I only studied SRS for the first 3 months. Like I studied new stuff for the first 3 months, and then maybe I continued SRS for like a month or two after that. Then I stopped, and then I just picked the language completely up by just speaking to people. Mind you, I didn't get as far on specialized vocabulary as I would if I actually had dedicated study. But I think it doesn't what you're saying doesn't necessarily apply to languages that you can't even like. There's no place where you can just begin to grasp
I
to
think you're right.
to
I've
understand.
just kind of changed my opinion in real time, but I guess one thing I'd still, yeah. So I basically have changed my mind on this in real time. But one thing I'll still
Go
hold
on,
is
and
that,
then go ahead and go through the thought process of why as well. Like
oh, well,
I'm
I've changed my
curious about.
mind. Well, first off, my using Spanish as an example as to why output was good was a shitty idea to begin with because I speak English, and so they're really similar. Um, I started doing italki with Spanish on my fourth year studying
Yeah,
Spanish. That was
you're
even though like
probably
classes
pretty
aren't,
all right.
yeah, so even though Spanish is like pretty, so even though classes aren't really considered good to learn, like it's still 4 years. So maybe that's not the best idea.
Yeah, because I
Um,
output, like I said, I output after only 1 month of Portuguese, and it was okay. Like you like in a
okay,
month you can get close enough where I mean, ideally you would probably study 3 months or maybe 4 months and then start outputting. But in a month you can get close enough where you can actually start to really understand and actually have that like I+1 experience talking. But that's not gonna
yeah, for sure.
happen in Chinese. That's not gonna happen in Japanese. No way.
Yeah.
Maybe a
So
year like you can get close, but I wouldn't say you'd be anywhere near the time where it's more beneficial to start outputting instead of actually just working on your input.
yeah, for sure. One thing I'll still hold on to is that the and one of the things I wanted to talk about was the whole idea was how MIA and AJAT somehow kind of like implicitly developed like this cult like imagery, and I think part of it has to do with the whole
Imeji.
part of the output conversation. Um, because for example, if somebody was like for example, MIA probably would recommend against outputting if you were like I guess people if you were put in in a situation where you would have to output, I think that would be okay, and you wouldn't have to worry too much about it. But the way that MA kind of frames it, they make it seem like it's a huge sin, and you're going to pay the price of like I don't know a lot for it.
I
Whereas if
I think I mean I think personally Matt has stepped back a lot from that sort of mentality. That's more like the mentality that AJAT promotes, and I would
hmm,
say that it's not so much that like the approach says, oh, you should never output. There should be no exceptions, and then you shouldn't go out and have social you shouldn't go out and do participate in social activities that you're interested in the language. No, I'm just it's more like a recognition that the way you actually improve the most efficient way is through input, especially at the beginning,
Yeah.
and that there it's just more of a recognition of what happens when you
Yeah.
output
I think
early.
that's exactly right.
It's not
Matt just
that
mentioned in the
you
chat.
absolutely shouldn't. You should live your life precisely in the way you wish to live it, and hopefully it's in everyone's ability to live their lives close to the way they would like to live it. But I don't
Yeah.
think that's. I think I do agree with you that Matt perhaps before was a bit more like, and I think Matt, you got to make a video about this, like outlining this more. But it's more just the recognition, and if you recognize that, if someone really recognizes that, I think they're gonna choose to like, they're gonna weigh the importance of their language goals and maybe socialization, and it's okay if you just want to be social, you prefer that, it's literally fine because I largely did that in China. It's a good time. It's okay to just live your life in the way you want to. That's important, but we have to recognize the actual reality that seems to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's pretty concrete that
Yeah,
that
I think that
input
nuance is
first
correct.
is the way to get better more quickly and more efficiently. Go on.
Yeah, I think that nuanced response is correct. And Matt just mentioned in the chat that that's not his position at all. I wasn't trying to strawman him or anything, but
No, yeah, go
I
ahead.
think
I
this leads
understand the impression that some of his older videos have left, so like I can understand your perspective.
right, but this actually leads right into my like next thing I wanted to, I guess, discuss about was the idea of MA and Asia developing a cult-like personality. It's not necessarily like Matt and people in the Asia MA community were trying to develop a cult-like personality. This wasn't something that was planned, and I would argue it's something that's implicit and something that emerges in all organizations, or I guess
Many.
theories or philosophies. And the problem which kind of led to my idea of what I thought Matt believed just now about like output is because in there aren't a lot of people who I guess achieve mastery in the world. And so with AJA and MAA, Matt and other people are trying to create more or less concrete guidelines to follow by to get to mastery or a high level. And so since those are and so because of that, Matt has to try to, I guess, convince people on that. And that means convincing them against other ways of like acting and learning. And that brings about the cult-like personality, because when you more or less have to kind of like drill down on people that this is the right way to act, what you're doing is pointless. It comes off, it rubs on people the wrong way, I guess. And so that's like something that's very hard to avoid. I don't really have a solution for it, but it's something that is very difficult to avoid. I mean, you just saw probably just yesterday or today in the chat, this one person was asking some questions on like MA, and people were going off on him. I thought it was pretty funny, but I didn't participate in it. But people were going off.
Yeah.
I
think Matt mentioned it to me, though. I think.
Oh yeah, Matt was kind of in the conversation as well.
Yeah.
He kind of ended it. The guy felt pretty bad. He wrote a pretty big apology. But the fact that he had to write an apology was kind of crazy and indicative of potentially just like even all these people who have such great like they have good intent in the chat. Like they're not trying to make this guy feel bad. The guy Matt said the guy literally did not do any immersion.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Like there are these people who are like they're clearly not on the right track, but it's hard to guide them on the right track without giving off this impression of a cult and being rude, because it's just hard to give people guidelines on achieving mastery, which a small percent of the population do anyway.
Well, I mean, like at the end of the day, like I feel I can say this, and I'm pretty sure to some point I think Matt would agree. Like the overall point of MIA is to actually promote language learning like methodologies that actually work and are effective. Because if you look at what's actually happening in the language learning world, you can see that the majority of activities that humans are doing for language learning are actually not producing results, right? Whatever organizations people are setting up, for the, to offer to people like language learning courses or language learning information, most of that doesn't actually lead to results. So in a way, one has to criticize, you know, ineffective methods that have been going on for a long
Yep.
time, and they're just it's just they provably don't lead to good results.
Yes.
And I mean, overall, I think another sort of like an important perspective that also needs to like perpetuate through the community, I would say, would be that it's okay if other people are using other methods. It's okay if
Exactly.
they happen. There's no reason to criticize a person just because you don't agree with their method. It's a completely different thing. The person did nothing wrong just by simply following a method. Everyone's trying to achieve their goal, right? At the end of the day, everyone, whatever that language learning goal might be, they have a language learning goal, and they're doing their best to try to get to that goal. So it's kind of ridiculous to go and criticize people for doing the best that they can. You know what I mean? They're doing what they
Hmm.
think is right. Like at the end of the day, they're not going to be like on purpose using a method that they think is incorrect, right? So I
Yeah.
think from the beginning, like we should keep that in mind and not just attack people for, just because they happen not to know. You can just simply explain like, well, I think immersion might be the best way, and why we feel that way, and we like we feel there's a lot of evidence pointing to that, etc.
Yeah.
But the whole idea of attacking people and like looking down on them because they're using other methods that may be ineffective is just like kind of ridiculous because
Right.
everyone's trying to do the best for themselves in their lives. So we should definitely like
Yeah.
kind of promote that because that's it's not just like we're trying to promote that um like point of view because that's literally reality. Everyone wants to do the best for themselves unless they're like mentally ill and like literally unable to like think in a normal
Hmm.
thought, using a normal thought process. But most people aren't like that. So,
Right. I think
and they wouldn't be
there's
language
like
learning, those people probably. Go on.
yeah, like two aspects. There's like two aspects to this. One is what you just said, which is you shouldn't, or try your best at least not to grill people who are blatantly not following what we've agreed on more or less to be best practices in language. But the other thing,
Go on.
which is not in defense of the person who got kind of grilled in the chat, would be to take, maybe the right word is like a proactive mindset of learning language. Before I learned the MIA, before I joined, like I guess consider myself joining the MIA community, I learned all this stuff by myself and intuitively figured out the problems that like Matt identified with kanji learning and ideas of like
Go on.
immersing. Although I had some misconceptions about output, but I figured out these things on my own, and I think MIA is very good for people like myself who are able to learn on their own and kind of take things from Brit versus Japan, take things from Nuke Marine, take things from everybody, and kind of create your own like thing that works great for you. The problem is that like a lot of people they need somebody to like tell them what's right, and so I think people need to try their best to have like a combination of like listening to like the best practices and what people say in the MA community, but also being able to like think for yourself actually and pick the right path from there. Something along those lines.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean that's why like something Matt and I like what we hope MIA to be later is like the whole idea of with using the word approach is that it's an approach to language learning that's based on mass immersion. It's not a method that you have to follow exactly. It's just
Good point.
recommendations, and we have like we have methods within that approach, and then we have um at the end of the day though, like MIA is about getting people to at least high levels of fluency, or like fluency and beyond, right? Fluency and beyond. We're not trying to get people to conversational levels. We're trying to cater to people who actually want to get to at least fluency, and then working from there, we're going to recommend the methods that'll get you there. For example, we can talk about, oh, um, you can get to fluency. You can likely get to fluency more quickly if you focus a lot on reading from the beginning, right? But then there's a trade-off. So that's the whole idea with MIA is that we're going to like promote methods that work while trying to explain to people the difference in within those methods and how you can go best about like learning your target language depending on your own goals. But your goals should be
Yeah.
at least fluency because because it's a completely different thing. Like if we're making a method for conversational or like travel Japanese, well, travel Japanese is a completely different thing than fluent Japanese with
Yeah.
fluent understanding, right? It's a completely different thing. So at the end of the day, it's okay that a lot of people don't have like we have to remember that a lot of people in the larger language learning community don't necessarily have the goal of like fluency and in the future we hope to like really define fluency and understanding. We have some plans to do that, and
Mm.
so we have concrete terminology to speak with when we talk about these topics. But it's important to remember that other people have different goals, and the whole idea is that MIA is about getting fluent, getting at least fluency and beyond, right? And high levels of fluency, and then even native like fluency. That's what MIA is there for. And within the approach, like I said, different methods can arise.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a
Yeah.
good focus for MAA. It's going to
Yeah.
be difficult because of the problems that I explained of like
Yeah.
explaining first off these outland not outlandish out there ideas
Yeah.
of like immersion of being the best in RTK and things like that.
I mean,
I mean, you see,
it's just out there because it just hasn't been promoted. It's obvious that
yeah, that's
immersion
true.
leads to fluency. Like if you think about if you think about like if you actually think about how people acquire languages, and you can see that like children will move to. Oh, I mean, some people will say, "Oh, but the children are able to acquire the language only because they're younger." Some people might say something like that, but you can see like even 15-year-old kids will be tossed in to school. Like their parents, their family will move from abroad to America or somewhere, and they'll pick up the language going to school because they're just thrown into the environment. They'll pick up the language. Mind you, will they be perfect? No, but they'll get fluent. They'll get fluent. Their parents never will. Why is that? Well, there's like you can see there's a difference of something going on there. There's some kind of they're immersing within the actual like community. I mean, mind you, is that the necessarily the best way to go about it? Are their results the best? That's a completely different conversation. But I feel like it's more an issue of just like the fusion of information than anything. I honestly feel that way. Perhaps I'm incorrect, but I honestly feel strongly
Mm.
that way. Because it's going I feel like in the future it's going to be just like common sense that oh you have to immerse to language learn until neural implants come out. Then that's obsolete. But till
Yeah,
then, we have a good 20 years, maybe, hopefully. To
yep,
actually, maybe not. Hopefully less, because neural implants will solve it. Then the language debate will end at that point.
yep. I'm sure you've seen living in the U.S. the whole. Hopefully you don't think this is too off topic. The whole
Go on.
political
No, we can
situation in
talk
the
about
U.S.
anything. We can talk about anything. The yoga
Okay.
cast is just a chat, man. Go on.
It's yeah, and so there's a lot of political issues in the U.S. with like people not being able to talk to was it the other side about different issues. And there's two problems with that. One, the other side not being receptive, and two, the side like criticizing the other and like bad
Yeah.
mouthing them and
Yeah,
not really
yeah.
listening to them at all. And the same thing implicitly is already emerging out of MAA in some sense. Not
Yeah.
I'm not like necessarily criticizing MAA. I'm just saying it's something that we have to worry about. And because it's something that already being it's something that because it's something that emerges in politics and everywhere. It's something that we should all just keep in mind to avoid as
For
we
sure.
move forward.
Yeah. I mean, another huge issue is just that whenever you get some kind of like I mean, I guess this, MIA could be called like an organization because any kind of like human organization, right? And there's some kind of message that you want to spread through that organization. It's never going to just hit everyone the same way. It's never going like you're not going to get everyone, on board. It's always going to be in a sense like people are going to be themselves and they're going to interpret the ideas in their own ways and they're going to behave in the way that they do. But the best one can do is just promote that the idea, the facts that everyone's trying to do the best for themselves. Everyone's trying to learn a language. Like like I was saying earlier, there's no reason to criticize actual people. You can criticize methods. You can promote MIA. You can do that, but there's no reason to criticize people or insult them for trying to do the best they're trying to do for themselves. So that's all you can do. But to expect that necessarily the whole community is actually going to be like actively like engaging in in behaving in that way is kind of, that's a huge expectation. Although I'd hope that we can strive towards that.
Yeah, something we should strive
Yeah,
towards. Maybe not.
For
Yeah,
sure.
maybe it's impossible. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're heading towards the end. What time do we actually start?
Like a little after.
Like
2
10.
2
We'll
p.m.
go till like 10. So we have like 20 minutes. So, okay, guys. Last 10 minutes. If you want to ask questions, I'll answer questions for the last 10 minutes. So we have like 7 more minutes to talk, and then we'll do that because I have a get together later tonight. So. What's Matt saying? The fact is that our message is in conflict with the message of others. So on some level, the issues that you're talking about are unavoidable. Of course, I think it's important for people doing MIA to behave behaviorally.
To behave maturely is what he meant.
Yeah, I know. Behaviorally mature. No, I know.
Yeah,
Understand what
he
he's
doesn't know saying.
saying.
how to spell. He learned too much Japanese.
Yeah, no, he's probably using his phone or something. That's why. To behave maturely, though. Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I spelled oops.
I mean, that's yeah. Like, Matt and I have talked a bit about this, like this issue that like we've seen. Like, I think people are just, like tribalism is just a very real thing. Like, as soon as people identify with something, they want to just like, kind of, not necessarily everyone, but they kind of see people outside of their community as the other, and they want to kind of be
Sure.
a bit discriminatory, let's say, and then we should promote not being that way, because obviously that's not the way to be.
Yeah.
Especially when it's language learning, for goodness sake. We're just saying we think we have a good way to language learn. It's not that important to the point where we have to insult people for like learning, learning their own way. Another thing, Matt did say that I can go ahead and drop the release on the planned release as long as we get these last few or most of the last couple bugs sorted. We're planning to release it. When was it again, Matt?
With the death point thing?
No, Death Point's going to be next week, but no, the GitHub release and public release of that. It's coming soon. Matt, when was it? That's all going well. But anyways, it's going to be, I think, next month. I'm waiting for Matt. So yeah, we're going to have a public release. Everything's going to go public, guys.
It's great. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're aiming for sometime next month. Yeah. So get all the bugs worked out, get it out there. You can, if you want to be in charge of that project, that's cool.
100%.
You can be in charge of that project. Well, I mean, depending, like everyone who's who wants to be. I mean, we can have several people. It's fine. It doesn't matter. But yeah, you can definitely be a candidate to do that. And
Sure.
Fantastic. So what other ideas do you have? So are you having for like add-ons or different things? I'm curious if there are some ways that we can cooperate, etc.
I'm working on. I'm planning on making it. I'm working on some other projects right now, but one thing I have planned is a browser extension that works with Morphman. The idea would be that it looks at your databases, and similar to how it highlights your cards in Anki, it would just highlight whatever you're reading in the browser, which has its benefits. One being, some people. Or one being, you would see when you open an article, for example, like, okay, is this something I should be reading, or is everything?
It'll just highlight your known words, for example.
Right, it would highlight your knowns. It would highlight your I+1 words, or rather your unknown words, and it would not highlight your mature words, just like it does in Anki.
Cool.
So that's a browser extension that's in the works.
Cool. Yeah. We've had some similar thoughts along those lines as well. That's okay. Anything else?
Not off the top of my head. I have a bunch of other projects that aren't MIA related that I also want to get to. So outside from those projects,
what are those projects? Those are probably interested
for. I'm sorry.
What are some of those projects, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, sure.
Those might be interesting to me from a coding perspective.
Right now, one thing that I'm working on is a physics simulator. I initially made it as my physics final project, but now I'm just working on it
for fun
outside of school. And what it basically is what the name suggests is it's just like a sandbox where you can move all the boxes and circles and objects that behave as according to the laws of physics, and you can do
Adjust
it. Yeah,
constants,
you can
etc.
adjust everything. It's I'm creating it with, I guess, the mindset that like if in AP physics class would use it, and so I'm gonna make it to where like teachers can create setups, save their setups, and then be able to share like the link for people to go like do work on those setups and calculate data.
You could do something
Um,
like on the moon or something. Like for example, you could do like some things like that. Do you mean
on
like
the moon? What do you mean?
you could like set up conditions like, oh, this
Oh,
is
sure, you
to
can.
show people like, oh, this is how physics works on the moon with the higher gravity, et cetera, different things.
Yeah, you wouldn't need to go to the moon. You just need to lower the gravity constant. But yeah,
That's what I'm
you'd be able to
saying.
do that.
You
Okay,
wouldn't
yeah,
go
yeah,
to the moon. I'm just saying you would like you could no I could see it like from like a classroom perspective. They would you could play in
yeah,
the sandbox and like for children they would might maybe enjoy something like that. I could see with like
yeah. So
different
there's some.
planets. I understand it's just the constant of gravity,
Got it.
obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, there are some plans for
I mean,
physics.
unless you're doing atmosphere like simulation too, then you could do that too. But that's pretty advanced.
Yeah, 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 I don't know. But yeah, there's some plans for all the physics teachers in my like school district to start using it, so that'll be good. Um, Also, I plan on making this. What is it? Like this is just for me to like get better at coding, not necessarily a project that's going to have too much impact, but um, like
What?
it'll be like a typing game, but when you you're already laughing, gosh. But
No,
when
no. The
you're
first project that I did, like big project that I did, was a typing site.
got
Literally.
it.
Yeah, that's why I
But it's gonna be
laughed.
more than that. It's gonna be more.
Yeah, go
So
on.
it's a typing game on baseline, but every single time you finish a game, and while you're playing the game, data is being recorded on like how you're typing, how much what your WP what your words per minute
Yeah,
is at the
of
end of
course.
it, and there'll be like an AI solution in the back end that will serve you text based on how crappily or how well will do on certain like types of text or certain like
Hmm.
syntax. There'll also be like a code version where like instead of like a passage it'll be code, and
Yeah,
you'll
yeah,
be
yeah.
doing like
That's
typing game on that.
yeah. That's
Yeah,
similar to what I did. Very similar. Except I didn't do like
mm.
recommendations. I just did it where you can input like what you want to type.
Yeah, and I think the recommendation is kind of extra, but I'm just trying to get better at coding, and I'm doing
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
I
yeah.
can
That's
to.
pretty funny because I did like a project very similar to that. Yeah, very,
Yeah,
very
I
similar.
think we have a very similar mindset, Yoga. I
Uh,
mean, you said in YogaCast 1 or 2 that like you're like the type of person who I guess like has a goal and like sticks to it, has like a goal mindset, and will like do what you can to get to it. And I think I'm very similar in that aspect. So maybe that's why we have similar project ideas. I don't know, but
cool.
like I have like a nice work ethic, I think, and a goal seeking behavior. So I don't make like BS claims to like grandiose things that I'm gonna do and just don't do them. I actually do them. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see what happens in the future. Maybe
What?
one day I can.
Oh, go on.
Hmm?
Go on. No,
I
go
was
on.
just
Go
gonna
on.
say. I was just gonna say maybe one day I can join you and Matt one day. Maybe that's the end goal. Trying to get really good at programming in Japanese, and we'll see what happens.
Mind you, I don't consider myself really good at programming at all. But cool. Like I'm trying to get better myself. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like I feel like the act of programming though is kind of the act of programming itself can get you better at like the logic part of coding and the problem solving, but I think
Mm.
it's a completely different thing than from getting better on the technology side and then from getting better at like code design and like that, like source code design and like actual
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
code structure. So
Hmm.
um like lately I've been coding a lot and I kind of want to, in the future I plan to have take some time to actually just get into like into the learning part again because I didn't code for like a long time. Later I'm gonna talk about it, but I didn't code for a long time when I first started code. I just started by
Mm.
reading about code and just more and more, and then reading code and then looking at how it actually works, etc. I found that
Right.
was the best way to actually learn how to code. You actually understand the code, then from then you can start coding. But I'll talk
Yeah.
about that in other videos. But so I have just a question. So you said you're excited for the MIA Japanese support add-on to go public, and on
Yeah.
GitHub you want to contribute. I'm curious about what ideas you have, particularly when it comes to that. add-on?
Hmm. Yeah, so I mean, off the bat, before we do any new features, it'd probably be best to do a bunch of refactoring. I mean,
Yeah,
you're
of
really
course.
busy and
Yeah, yeah.
you're just trying to get bugs
Yeah,
out of
it's
there, and so
refactoring wise. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I
yeah,
mean, you
but
have to understand. Like, I just did Python. Like,
mm,
it's different than the language I actually studied.
hmm,
Python, I just literally picked up and just went. Like, it was more like play. But on some of the other projects that I'm working on, I'm trying to actually do more of the design phase instead of just like prototype code where I just code. Because if you do that, it can get really messy. Like
hmm,
it can and it does get really messy. And another plan that I actually have to eventually do, I'm not sure exactly when this is going to happen, but I plan to, instead of build on top of the parsing, I plan to do my own parsing implementation. I'm thinking,
hmm.
because instead of building on top of the parsing, that's just like so. I think just like
It's probably
going,
endless.
yeah, like you can build on top of the parsing, and it can improve, and it has improved. That, like, for example, we're getting a lot of the compound words in, but I think there is a much better way to actually work on editing Macab itself, or like have our own parser built on top of it or something instead, that can push to higher levels of accuracy. And it doesn't even have to be
Yep.
Macab, instead of actually using the current implementation is building on top of it and correcting for errors. I think
Yeah,
that's
I think
likely
so
better.
because
But
I
go on.
mentioned like half an hour ago about how the idea about how like you can be in this community and like take things from here and there
Yeah,
and create like your ultimate like a like studying regimen. And one thing that I found was that you don't need to use that you should, instead of using the MeCab that is in the Japanese support plugin, you should use the MeCab that's
yeah,
that um, that is used in the Japanese text analysis tool.
yeah,
It's like that thing that creates frequency reports because that
yeah,
MeCab has like an enhanced dictionary and a bunch
yeah.
of other things that's
I,
already improved.
yeah, I've already heard that like I've already seen this, and I plan to eventually do that. But you know,
Right. So I mean that's something you
busy,
should be.
busy.
Yes,
So
I know. I know you're
that's
busy.
why I'm really interested in like just getting like that's the whole idea with like the MIA plugin series that we're working on. We're just gonna get things out there. We're gonna get new ideas out there, and we're gonna release it to the community. And we're gonna build, hopefully together, we'll build the best. We'll build like the best version at the end. Like that would be like the ideal situation that we can
Yeah.
hopefully strive towards.
And so
Fantastic. So,
like
go on.
I was just gonna say outside of refactoring and tests, we'd probably
Yeah,
want to speed up mass generation. It's unacceptably
functionality
slow.
wise, yeah.
But yeah.
It's a little slow. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Why is it slow? It's slow because it's going to, ideally, the pitch accent information is going to be within Macab's dictionary itself. So it just has like
Got it.
it's only going to be referenced once, right? Because
Right.
what
Right.
it's doing is the parsing is completely separate from the
Rest. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
actual, yeah, from the actual accent dictionary. Because that's
Yeah.
just because I didn't have the time to be like, okay, well, am I gonna teach myself C++ right now, and like get into Macab? And I was like, you know
Yeah.
what?
Hell
I'm
no.
not gonna do that because I'm a limited being with limited time.
Yeah.
I could, and that's why I'm like interested. And the real problem that I have is that like once I get on a project, like I'm like the compromises being made are always so painful because like realistically I know how to make it way better, right? I know how to like produce something better, but just the time investment,
Yeah.
it's not really, I can't justify it. So that's why it'll be good to like, so we'll get these plugins, we'll produce something good, produce a um something nice, and then we'll work on it together because then everyone only has to we can all contribute smaller portions ourselves. And I think it's pretty good. So
Yeah.
okay,
Looking
so
forward to it.
besides the mass generation, like functionality wise, like new functionality wise, are you
Um.
thinking anything? I'm curious.
Well, I mean, I mentioned this in the ideas
Go
chat,
on.
but it was shot down. But I'll bring it up again and see what you think
What was
personally.
it? What was it? Sorry. Did
It
I shoot
wasn't.
it down?
No, no, it wasn't you who shot it.
Oh,
It was
okay.
some other
Who
guy.
shot it down?
And
Sorry.
I responded to the guy saying like, yeah, I mean, that doesn't matter ultimately, but I just thought I'd bring it up. But it was just the idea that at least, especially for people who are beginners at pitch action, which I was when I sent that
Cool.
message,
Yeah.
it was just the idea that if it's so easy for you to generate audio like on the individual export button, right? So it
Yeah.
wouldn't be that much difficult to on, for example, like the on hover when you're looking at a sentence, you just click on it and it plays the audio right there.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
I know.
that
I'm gonna do that. I don't think
be great.
no, that's written there. That's an idea that I would like to implement. No, I have it in a note. Yeah, it's not that difficult. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I
It
figured it
just
wouldn't be.
yeah, it just wasn't like for beta. I just didn't put that in because that was actually something that Matt and I had actually talked about, like just playing the audio. Yeah, based on that, because it can just look
Yeah,
it up at that time, and then it can just play it
exactly.
directly from the media folder, not the media
Yeah,
folder, but like the add-on folder
the
where
add-on
the
folder, yeah.
media is. Yep. Yep. Cool. Cool. Okay. Anything else besides that? Curious.
Not off the top of my head. I know you
Yeah.
recently added that feature that me and Calculus Ace wanted, so we were pretty happy about that. The exporting into destination fields,
Yep.
that was nice.
Yep. Yep.
Um, mm,
Is that it? Do you have any questions for me before I go to other questions? I don't think there's only one question too.
Yeah.
So
I don't mean to hijack the Japanese podcast, but any programming tips?
It's
I know
not-
you
it's
say
not
like they'll be
about-
better than me.
it's hold on a second. It's not just the Japanese podcast. The YogaCast is the
Oh, right, it's
YogaCast.
an everything
The
podcast.
YogaCast is just a chatting. It's just a podcast. We chat. We have fun. I mean, it's obviously going to be language learning related because we're all
Yeah,
in the
programming
language learning
languages,
game. Yeah, programming languages too. But as far as that, I mean, like programming tips, the importance of actually reading about new like ways of doing things all the time is probably really important. And actually, the most important thing, actually, when you're actually coding, which obviously you can't always do this, but if you're coding a program for the sole purpose of getting better at code, as soon as you have an idea that's better than the idea, which I often don't do because sometimes it's just about delivering
Right.
something, but like as soon as you have an idea that's better than what you already have, redo everything, because the whole purpose is not the project. If you're actually
Right.
doing a project for getting better at code, as soon as you can see where you're going wrong, you should just redo it all realistically, because that's how you're going to improve. Because then next time you're going to just start the project off, like you're more likely to start a project off correctly the first time. But another thing that I really like to do, honestly, if there's like a project that you actually want to work on and then you want to deliver like good code on, is just prototype it. Just start writing it. Write everything, because it's so difficult to predict everything you're going to need.
Right.
And then, but just always plan. I mean, this is actually like I forget what they call it. There's actually like this kind of like methodology when
It's called an MVP, I think, in like software
Yeah.
engineering. Like you create an MVP, a minimal viable product, and then from there you like
Exactly. But then you just have I knew there was like a name for it, but
Right.
that's what I really like. Just build it, and that's why you see what I'm delivering, because I'm just doing that. I'm just like, hey, this is what I'm doing, and then later you can like make a class structure. You can do when you actually understand the problem, because it's so hard to predict a problem correctly before you start it. You have no idea what's gonna like. I mean, you have no idea what the actually problem's actually going to entail. So it's very hard to design something. So it's
that's a good
just
point.
way better to just do it twice. Honestly, if the goal is good, good quality code.
Yeah,
So-
because I waste a lot of time like thinking like, how am I gonna have like this like file structure and class structure, but you don't even know what the problem.
You don't know what the
problems
problem
you're gonna run
is.
into.
It's
Yeah, that's a
it's
good point.
ridiculous to do it that way. In my opinion, honestly, it's so much more better. It's more better. It's so much better to actually figure out the problem, and then you can do that. Because right now it's like so easy. Like if I were to write rewrite the plugin, it'd be so easy. Like I can make like something way better, right? The second time around. So it's just much better to just make it quick and dirty the first time, make it work, make it functional, understand the problem, rewrite. If it doesn't matter, just if it's just prototype, then that's good enough as well. But ideally, if you're doing it for getting better at code, then you would rewrite, and then you would write the structure, because you can actually write the structure after you understand the problem. So that would be the main, as far as actually code production goes. That's my main tip as far as what I feel works for me. But as far as getting better, it's a lot about just like reading new stuff often, which I haven't been doing lately. So I don't feel like, even though I'm like getting a better understanding of how to actually do things, I think it's different. Nothing beats also nothing beats like just reading documentation, in my opinion. There are a lot of people who like criticize it, like, oh, reading documentation, but then when you actually look at them, they don't understand what's going on with the programming language at all. I like I recommend reading slowly, just working your way through all of the documentation. It's like, yeah, okay, so maybe you're not going to actually need all of it. You're not going to use large swaths of it. Okay, but you at least have a reference for when that problem comes up. And that's why I would recommend like a little bit of Anki usage, just of what features a language has without any memorization.
I do that with CS.
Yeah.
Like Anki with CS. Yeah.
Yeah, but just like to remind you of constantly remind you of the features the language has, instead of actually test you, because testing, you may as well just code and you'll figure it out. But like, because some of those features actually can, if you just have them in mind, it can completely change how you're gonna solve a problem. But if you don't have them in mind, it's really like you can't reference it. So the people who like, I think a lot of people I've seen that they say, oh, just start coding. You never have to really just look up things as you want. If you really want to like understand a language, which I haven't done with Python, so there's a lot of like I haven't done it because I
suck at Python too. It's fine.
Nor do I plan to because I'm gonna move over to some other projects in the near future that aren't going to use Python. So I'm gonna actually really focus on hammering down on those when, like I said, when I get back into a learning phase. But so pretty much, don't be afraid of reading documentation. Work your way through it slowly. You will be like automatically just you will see the benefits of doing it after you've done it. Let's put it that way, without question. Because when I did it with PHP, I was like, oh, okay, like you're not afraid of like, you're just not afraid of any part of the language anymore. Because what I've found is, I have some acquaintances that they have like CS degrees. Like, I'm just self-taught in code. They have CS degrees and they expected to just know how to code at the end of their degree.
Yeah.
And they don't actually know how to code. And because they're not actually like curious about learning how to code. Like, it's just they thought it was going to be fed to them, and they thought that the product that they were going to receive, and if they, as their education, their CS education would just automatically lead them to have the ability to code, which is not the case at all. Like, luckily, I didn't. I mean, mind you, I do want to, I do want to read more about algorithms, because I read about it like towards the beginning of programming, and I kind of forgot now that I actually program. So it'd be like really good to do a course on it again, so I'm actually able to like think that way now, because I read a lot more about it before I was actually like comfortable with programming. So I would also recommend like relearning algorithms after you're like really comfortable with coding, but which I haven't done yet. So this is kind of just like, but obviously it's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Well, so no, yeah, a lot of like the issues these people will have, like, they'll be afraid of frameworks. Like, they won't understand like how a framework function. Like, they won't understand that a framework is literally the same as any other code in the language. If you look in the background, it's just the same stuff. They don't like get that as well. So just documentation. Don't be afraid of the language.
People aren't very good at teaching themselves things. I mean, it's and no wonder, it's a hard skill, and maybe I don't have it. I don't have it perfect either, but I'm managing.
I messed up so much when I learned, because I came from language learning to learning code. Mind you, I tried to learn code quite a few times, and man, I messed up pretty bad. Like, I could have like I could have done a lot better if I would have known a lot of things. But it's okay. I mean, that's part of learning it. That's why I'd like to later like talk about how I went about learning, because I think I could save people a lot of time, because I definitely like messed up on some in some areas, of course, as is to be expected. So let's see if there are any questions. Would you like to stay for the question segment?
Sure.
Okay, you can stay. Yeah, we'll chat together about these questions.
Somebody asked, are you having fun with your learning? What are you immersing with, and how much are you understanding? What makes you most grateful for having started Japanese? I don't know if that's for you or me, but
we're gonna assume that they're for me, but then you can answer that one too. So, where are these questions? How far up are these? Oh, question: are you having fun with learning? I see. I found it. Cool. Am I having fun with learning? With learning code, I'm having a lot of fun with learning code. Immersion, I'm not doing any of that right now. Really, honestly, I'm like really busy with other projects, guys. So, although I consider myself a highly experienced language learner, I'm not currently like really pursuing language learning. Although, I have projects going that are probably going to end, or actually not going to end for the foreseeable future. Once those are done, then I plan to actually get back into language learning a bit more, and like ease how much I focus on code. I want to get close. I want to be near native level in code before I go back to language learning. Put it that way.
Sorry, Yoga. The guy mentioned in chat it was for me, not for you.
Oh, was it for you? What does it say? Oh, it's for him. So I would like to
Fair.
be near native level. What's he doing asking you questions? No,
I
go
don't know,
on.
but
No,
I
I'm
sent you
joking.
a
You can't.
screenshot.
No, you can go ahead and answer.
Well, I sent you a screenshot. It's my stats for Japanese. I understand 61% of Japanese Netflix, which is pretty bad, but that's where I'm at. So
That's all good.
that gives you
Sound
an
good.
idea.
Oh, let's
Yeah, I
see.
mean, it's like a spreadsheet that calculates based on known morphs. It calculates what you understand in media. So I understand 61% of
Hey,
Japanese Netflix.
one year in, you're well on your way, man. Not a problem. That's
And I
how
know
it
I'm
works.
learning really fast because, as I explained to you, this is what's in my Anki. So I actually know a fair amount more than what's represented here.
Yeah.
And every single day, I'm adding like a plus 100 to my K value on Morphman because I'm just running through these words that I already know.
Just
Like
killing
yesterday, I ran across like subarashi, and I'm like, I just skipped past it. It's one of those just so it happens pretty often.
Fantastic. Cool. Um,
But yeah, I'm just immersing with like anime that I enjoy, like The Promised Neverland. It's a great show. Go watch it. Terrace House is nice. Um, yeah,
and what makes you the most grateful for having started Japanese?
most grateful. I think all the meta skills that I've developed, like shooting for mastery, or just a goal in general. Being more disciplined, and then is a more general sense on language learning, which I plan to continue. Like after I become fluent in I guess a little over a year in Japanese, I'm going to start Korean. And I think what languages does for you is, I think in Japanese the way you say it is like shia or hiromeru, like to broaden your perspective.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely broadened my perspective because you hear not only different perspectives and like from different people, different thoughts, but also how they think about things that you already think about. Like the way you convey ideas in Japanese is different in English, and just that different way of thinking of an idea is something that expands your, I guess, worldview. And so language learning is very enriching in different contexts. You can also apply the skills you learn from language learning, like literal skills, learning language, and also meta skills in other aspects. And also what you mentioned, you and Matt, in one of the podcasts, which is how like after you learn a language, you can't do much with it unless you combine it with another skill. Like I have programming and a bunch of other things that I'm doing, and so it's definitely useful for me when you're combining it with some other stuff.
Cool. Okay. And then Simone asks, Yoga, regarding vocabulary cards, when do you think it's better to do them, at the beginning or what? I mean, I don't think it necessarily matters when you do them. If you keep them to concrete nouns, you can do them alongside your sentences. I think it really doesn't matter. Just don't put too many of them in. Like, just, stay in your comfort level. Like, stay within your tolerance levels, maybe better. Don't try to do too much. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Any questions? I think Matt said something similar maybe a week ago. Oh no, that's just people chatting. Okay, and there was one question on Patreon, I think, so I'm gonna answer that if I can find it. Let's see. Wait one moment, please, people. Yeah. Okay. No, that's old gems. Okay, here it is. So the question, actually, there are two questions. Wow, so many. Okay, so the first question is from Genius Mit. Can one be fluent in 3 years doing 10 monolingual cards and 3 to 4 hours listening a day without reading much? What language? And the language is Japanese. Listening hours active. I would wager. I can't say can't say without running a simulation that accurately like models that, but I can say from experience that reading was a huge boost to like comfort in the language. So I would be very wary of. I mean, I'm sure you can get to if you're listening 3 to 4 hours and you're still like learning to understand. I'm sure you can probably become fluent, but I would be wary of not reading. Reading is a fantastic way to improve your language skill. Skabak asks, there were a couple questions from Matt's last Q&A that I thought people might want to hear your response as well. What Japanese documentaries do you recommend? You can watch my media recommendations video about that. Like I recommend BS documentary, which is funny because like I always think bullshit documentary, and then NHK special, and I mean those are mostly what I watch because there's like just hundreds of them. So, but there are a bunch. I just like mostly history documentaries. You can just Google it, and I don't. As far as like particular documentaries, I don't know. I mostly watch like Meiji era documentaries. There's like really one good one about like Meiji Ishin, but I think that's NHK special, and it goes into like everything that they did. That's one that like sticks out in my memory that I liked, and they go into all of the different reforms. But I'm not sure everyone's into that kind of thing. So, how important is going monolingual and learning a language close to L1? I would consider it not very important at all. With Portuguese, I never went monolingual, and I made great progress. Like there are some languages that are actually just so, and we can get your input on this because you did Spanish, but there's some languages that are so close to your own language that you'll find that most ideas are literally explained in the same way. Like in Portuguese, I was, you know how Matt just made a video about how you can't predict the ways. Yeah, you can't predict the ways people are going to say something in their native language. Well, I would argue that that's usually true, but not always true. And in the case of European language, you'd be surprised because they'll say things not only in the same way, but because they say things in usually like the exact same way you would say it in English, it's really easy to like remember that in the future. It's like you heard it and it's like, oh, they say it like the same way we do in English, and then your brain like automatically checks that off, and like you just acquire so much more quickly because you're not like looking out for like new unique, or you don't need to look, your brain doesn't need to necessarily look out for more unique ways of saying things all the time, because almost all the time it's just comprehensible input in a way that you would think you would say it in your native language, which really helps for a quick acquisition. What would you say on the topic?
Well, it's definitely way easier with the European language. Literally, words. Some words are even spelt the same; they're just pronounced differently, like similar or simple. Like you know exactly what they're talking about, and so it's really easy compared to Japanese, which literally you have to learn. You have to learn the complete new word.
Yeah, and there are literally one-to-ones all over the place on words.
Yeah.
Unlike like Japanese, you're gonna like see like, oh, it can mean 30 things. No, in like when you're learning Portuguese, a lot of the words are one-to-one. It's a completely different game. It's literally a different game, I would say.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, guys, fantastic. We went a little bit over. I guess it's a good treat for you for you all if you're interested in it. I guess it was a little.
I said YogaCast 2 instead of 3 on the live stream.
Oh, it's all good. Did I? Or I did?
It's written at YogaCast number 2 on the live stream.
Oh, whatever. No, it's just from last time. I didn't change it. That's what happened. Yeah. I forgot to even change it. Yeah, whatever. YogaCast 3. Cool. Fantastic. Will MIA add-on be available for Anki 2.0? Genius, I think we're going with the approach of bringing everything to 2.1. So I'm pretty sure that's what Matt and I are more interested in doing, and just supporting the updated version of Anki. Originally we were thinking to go that route, but instead we're going to make sure that everything is on 2.1. So yeah. So Matt says 2.0 is old news, my brother. Are you on 2.0?
No, I'm on 2.1. I think it's a
Yeah.
waste of time making 2.0 add-ons
Yeah,
because I mean,
I'm done.
especially with MIA, you're gonna have a ton of add-ons now, and you're gonna have
Exactly.
to support all of them.
Yeah,
Like, no way, you're
not
gonna have to
happening. That's
maintain
what I
two operations.
realized. I was like, we're gonna do more, and I'm not making like I'm not going through and like no, not doing it. No. So if you want to be with all the hype MIA 2 point or MIA add-ons, then join us in 2.1 land, my brother,
So literally
because
all the add-ons that are on 2.0, I have on 2.1. Like even heat maps on 2.1 now.
yeah,
Like, literally everything's on there.
everything's gonna be on there. So yeah, 2.1. 2.1 is the future. Or 2.0 is the future. Matt accidentally said, "That's the way Italian and Spanish are the most similar languages ever. In fact, the way of saying things. Yeah, yeah. Like Italian. I remember at my peak in Portuguese, I could understand like 70% of Italian. I could understand like 90% of some Spanish, depending on the pronunciation. But I found some Spanish is pronounced in a very like slurry way, and it's not very like easy to understand. But after learning Portuguese, I can under some Spanish. You can understand 90%. You can just infer so much because
Mhm.
they're just saying like they're just I can't use it. I can't come up with a single example now. But speak some Spanish now. Let's see if I can understand you. If I
What do you want me
could
to say? You gotta tell me.
anything, just go. Just go for it. Let's see.
Okay. Hola, me llamo Sean. He estado hablando español por 4 años.
You've been
Y,
speaking English for 4 years or Spanish for 4 years, and your name. I go on.
yeah. Y hoy en día he estado estudiando japonés, ya que mi hermano también habla japonés, y así que pensé
Yeah,
que,
then I'm
algún
studying
día puedo.
Japanese, and my brother also studies Japanese.
Yeah, so yeah, that's clearly you got it.
I mean, do something more difficult. Do something
More
difficult. That's too
difficult?
easy. Do something difficult. Talk about something difficult. Let me see.
Like what?
Because I remember I could like watch. I could like I would understand. Like I would watch news and I would understand like 90%. Obviously, it's way worse now. Even Portuguese, my understanding has dropped so much. But
Let
I'm
me
just
find some
curious.
news online. I'll just translate it.
Okay, okay.
News online.
Yeah, just the little
Fox News,
fun
breaking
game.
news.
Challenge me, please, Matt versus Japan. Yes,
Okay.
sorry, man. You know
This is
me.
about Pelosi
I enjoy
and
it.
Trump. See if you can do this.
All right, let's go. Let's go.
Okay. Okay. Pelosi pelea a Trump. Wait, no. Oh shit, I don't know how to say deal in Spanish. Fuck me.
Why don't you
What?
just look at some Spanish news and just read it out? That might be the
Oh
better.
yeah.
That
Good
might be the
point.
better way to
I
do
don't know
it.
why I'm translating. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, why translate? That's like a different skill, man.
Yeah, alright.
Let's try it.
Alright, see. Wait, no, this isn't Spanish either. What are you doing?
Demasiado fácil. It's too easy.
Too
Yeah,
easy, yeah.
Too easy. See, I understand, but we're not gonna. We're gonna say fácil demais in Portuguese. It's different, but
Mhm.
you know, I can instantly just It's like that's the power of like European languages. You can just pick it up. It's like boom,
Alright, you
unlock.
ready? This is about a
Alright.
plane. It's about the Boeing.
Dude, you didn't even have to tell me
737.
anything. You didn't even have to tell
Oh,
me
it's too
anything.
late.
Yeah.
¿Qué ocurrió dentro de la cabina de los aviones que se accidentaron?
I didn't hear at the beginning, but something inside of the cabin of the airplanes.
Ajá.
Go on.
En Etiopía e Indonesia. No
In
hubo otra cosa.
Ethiopia and Indonesia. Alright, hold on.
No hubo otra cosa que los pilotos pudieran hacer. That was an easy sentence. No
Um,
hubo otra cosa que los pilotos pudieran hacer.
They could assess. I don't know that last one.
So pudieron is to be able to.
Yeah,
So
to
there
be
was
able to.
nothing else
That's what I said. They
could've done.
could. They could what?
There was
Assess?
nothing else that the pilots could have done. Like they couldn't have
Oh,
done anything.
do assess. I see. I see. Okay, I see. Okay.
Yeah,
Go on.
so like, mientras las alarmas sonaban dentro de la cabina, el capitán y el primer oficial luchaban por recuperar el control del wait, what is that? Aeronave. What is that word?
Aeronave that's airplane. It's like aircraft. Aircraft.
Aeronave.
Yeah.
I didn't know that one. You knew that. You know more Spanish than I do. All right.
Yeah, well, because it's like aircraft. Yeah, I'm almost positive on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna stop though. Yeah, I'm daitai wakateru. I don't want to say I'm pretty much understanding, but not anywhere near as well as before. But yeah, dude, it's pretty crazy. Imagine like learning Spanish now. Then after you're gonna study Portuguese and then Italian. It's just so easy. It's a different game. Like learning an Asian language or learning a language sufficiently different from one's L1 or even an L2 that they know. It's just a different game. It's just gonna take so much more time investment. So I'm not really impressed by the European polyglots because you can do that. Like you can do a European language legitimately within some months. Some
Yeah, for sure.
months. Cool,
Yeah.
fantastic. Okay, guys, I'm native Brazilian, and I think Yoga understands more than me. Lol. Um, nah, dude. I mean, maybe Spanish randomly. Yeah, yeah. I understand Navi is ship, Yan. Thank you, though. No, but I think the way, yeah, aeronavi is not actually airship, though. I think it translates to aircraft. Craft. If
Yeah,
I
you're right.
could
I
be
just looked it up.
correct.
Aircraft.
Yeah,
That's exactly
aircraft
right.
is the way you'd think of it. Yeah, but they say it. Yeah, airship. But sweet. I learned 7 versions of the same language to a decent level. Matt said, "Yeah, that's the polyglot. That's the Euro focus polyglot. I learned 7 languages to the same level." And with that, we'll say goodbye, guys. Farewell. Fantastic. Have
Nice
fun.
talking to you.
Um, do whatever you guys want to do. I don't care. Or actually, immerse, guys. AJAT. No, all right. Bye.